The church bells rang like knives in my chest. I stood at the far end of the aisle, hidden behind the carved wooden pillar, watching her glide forward in a white dress that shimmered beneath the stained glass light. My throat burned. My fingers clenched the bouquet I was supposed to hand to the bridesmaids. My small part in the ceremony that felt like a funeral for everything I'd ever wanted. The groom smiled as she reached him. Not just smiled, he glowed. Adrian, the man I had loved in secret for 5 years, was about to promise his forever to someone else. And the cruelest part, I was the one who introduced them. It began 5 years ago in the most ordinary way imaginable. Me, a new intern at the marketing firm, fumbling through my first presentation, and him, the charismatic project head who noticed I couldn't get my laptop to connect. He'd laughed softly, taking it from my trembling hands. "Relax, Maya. It's just Wi-Fi, not a bomb." That laugh, it became my undoing. From that day, our connection grew quietly, like ivy creeping up a wall. Lunch breaks turned into late-night calls, work emails into long personal threads full of half-meant confessions. He was older, steadier, and devastatingly kind. But there was always a hesitation in him, something restrained, as if he were afraid of what might happen if he took one step too close. We never labeled what we had. We didn't need to. He once told me, "You know me better than anyone else ever will." And I believed him. But now, standing in this church, I wondered if I had just been a shadow in the corner of his life, a safe warmth he could return to when the world went cold. I remember the night everything changed. It was late, nearly midnight. The office was empty except for the glow of my desk lamp. Adrian had stayed back to help me finalize a client proposal. I'd spilled coffee over my shirt earlier and changed into an old hoodie I kept at work. "Why do you always stay so late?" he asked, leaning against my desk. I smiled weakly. "Because I'm terrified of disappointing you." He stared at me for a moment that felt like forever. Then he stepped closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You never could." The air between us thickened. His hand brushed mine and my pulse surged. For 1 second I thought he'd kiss me. For 1 second, I thought he'd finally let go of whatever stopped him. But he didn't. He stepped back, ran a hand through his hair and said softly, "You deserve someone who isn't complicated." I laughed to hide the sting. "You're not complicated. You're just scared." He smiled, that broken smile of his. Exactly. That was our rhythm. Almosts and maybes, heartbeats that never aligned. When the CEO, Daniel Hart, joined our company, everything changed. He was everything Adrian wasn't. Decisive, bold, magnetic. The kind of man who walked into a room and owned it. And somehow, Adrian introduced him to me. "Daniel's taking over the partnership projects," he'd said casually. "You'll be working closely with him." I didn't think much of it at first. But I noticed how Daniel's gaze lingered too long, how his compliments landed with a weight I couldn't quite ignore. And Adrian noticed too. He became distant. Calls stopped. Messages grew shorter. The warmth we had turned brittle, cautious. When I asked if I'd done something wrong, he just said, "You didn't." I did. 2 months later, I heard from a colleague that he was seeing someone. Her name was Elena, the CEO's sister. My stomach dropped. I tried to be mature about it, to tell myself it wasn't betrayal because we were never official. But late at night, I'd scroll through their photos. Adrian and Elena at a fundraiser, Adrian and Elena smiling at a gala, and each image felt like a blade. The worst part was that he still looked at me the same way at work. That quiet, searching look that said he wanted to say something but didn't. Once, during a team dinner, he brushed past me and whispered, "You're not angry?" I stared at him, holding my breath. "Should I be?" He looked down. "Maybe. But I hope you're not." That night, I cried until dawn. Months passed. Then came the announcement. Adrian and Elena are engaged. I stared at the email on my screen until the words blurred. My chest felt hollow. Everyone in the office buzzed with excitement, gossip, congratulations. No one knew that every congratulatory message was another stone pressing down on my ribs. He came to my desk later that week. I wanted you to hear it from me, he said softly. I wanted to scream at him, why her? Why not me? But all I managed was, I hope she makes you happy. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. She's good. Kind. You'll like her. I wanted to tell him that I didn't want to like her. That I wanted to be the one he chose when no one was watching. But I just nodded. On the wedding day, I told myself I wouldn't go. That I'd save what little pride I had left. But Daniel, the CEO, invited the entire department, and refusing would have looked petty. So here I was in pastel silk, pretending to be fine. As I watched him slide the ring onto Elena's finger, something inside me cracked. Not from jealousy anymore, but from realization. He wasn't mine to lose. He never had been. After the ceremony, Daniel approached me. Maya, right? Adrian always speaks highly of you. I smiled weakly. That's kind of him. Daniel looked at me curiously. Funny thing. He almost turned down the engagement. Said he had feelings for someone else, but couldn't act on them. My heartbeat stumbled. Oh, Daniel chuckled. Yeah, he said she deserved better. I guess he finally convinced himself to move on. Later that evening I found Adrian outside, standing by the garden fountain. His tie loosened, his hands shaking slightly. The laughter from the reception drifted faintly behind us. He looked up when he saw me. You came. I didn't plan to, I said quietly. But I'm glad I did. He nodded, eyes glistening. She's beautiful, isn't she? Yes, I whispered. And she loves you. He let out a fragile laugh. I hope so. Because I can't stop loving someone else. The words hit like thunder. My breath caught. Then why? Because I was too late, he said. I thought keeping my distance would make it easier. For both of us. But seeing you here, I realize it didn't. Tears burned my eyes. You made your choice. He nodded, pain twisting his face. And I'll live with it. But don't think for a second I don't regret it. We stood there in silence, the weight of years pressing between us. The fountain trickled softly, and for a moment, it felt like time folded in on itself. Like we were back in that empty office at midnight, still unsure, still afraid. Then he stepped forward, brushed a strand of hair from my cheek and whispered, "Goodbye, Maya." He turned before I could speak, walking back into the glow of the reception hall, back toward the woman who wasn't me. Months later I saw him again, on the front page of a business magazine. Adrian Cole's waiting, takes sabbatical after sudden health scare. They said he'd collapsed during a meeting. Stress, exhaustion. Maybe heartbreak. I'll never know. I didn't visit. Couldn't. Instead, I wrote him a letter I never sent. You once told me I deserved someone uncomplicated. Maybe love was never meant to be simple for us. Maybe it was meant to teach us what letting go really feels like. I folded the letter, tucked it into my drawer, and let it stay there. Like him, like us. A secret love that lived in the shadows too long to survive the light. And somewhere I hoped he knew. I still thought of him every time the church bells rang.